Hey friends, Happy New Year! I hope you all had a really good holiday, whatever that looked like for you. I actually had a really nice low-key holiday this year, which was really nice. I hope all of you managed to get a little bit of rest in there somewhere as well. I'm feeling refreshed and honestly really excited to be back. There's just something about a new year that makes change feel kind of good, like a reset for me, and it's had me doing a lot of reflecting lately. So as we head into 2026, I just want to say thank you, truly, to everyone who's been listening, sharing episodes, and sending me messages and supporting this podcast over the last 4 months. It does mean more to me than I can put into words. I started Valley of Secrets to tell important local stories, and the only reason I get to keep doing that is because of you. I do want to give you a heads up, though, about one change going forward. I've decided to step back from my weekly episodes so that I can give each case the time and care it really deserves. Not that the ones that I've already done didn't get that care, but it is just very time-consuming for me, and I need to hold some space for my family, and of course, I still work a regular full-time job as a nurse as well. So from now on, new episodes will drop every 2 weeks, so twice a month on Mondays. I really hope you will all stick with me on that. And while we're here and we're chatting, I hope you guys enjoy the podcast. And if you do, I'd be so grateful if you consider leaving a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcast. It helps listeners find the show, and honestly, it keeps me going as well. And I love to see what you guys say on there. And also, if you want to support the podcast financially, there's a small monthly donation option. The link is in the episode notes and in my social media bio at Valley of Secrets Podcast. All right, enough of that. Let's get into today's story. This is one of these cases that has never really left me. And if you lived in the Lower Mainland in the early 2000s, it probably hasn't left you either. Even if you don't remember every detail of this case, you remember how it felt. A 10-year-old girl disappeared from her dad's townhouse complex in Cloverdale, BC on a Sunday afternoon. She was just outside riding her bike like most kids do on a daily basis, especially in the early 2000s. She was just being a kid. And I remember watching the news back then while holding my infant son, seeing Heather's smiling face on posters and on the TV screen, and feeling that deep, sick fear that really only hits you when you're a parent. So when her body was eventually found more than 40 kilometers away, it confirmed what no one wanted to believe back then, and what so many people had been afraid of. Before we go any further, I do want to give a content warning on this episode. It discusses sexual assault and a murder of a child. Handle it with care because it is heavy, and please listen in a way that feels right for you. This is the story of Heather Thomas. Heather Lynn Thomas was born on March 12, 1990 in Surrey, British Columbia. Her parents were Patrick Thomas, who went by Pat, and Jody Thomas. Pat and Jody were estranged, living in different areas of Surrey, Pat in Cloverdale and Jody in Newton. And Heather and her little brother Christopher, or Chris, who was 8, were doing what so many kids do when parents split, the whole shared custody routine and dance. Weekdays with mom and weekends with dad. Heather was 10 years old in grade 5 and went to W.E. Kinvig Elementary. Like most girls in the year 2000, she loved the Backstreet Boys and Spice Girls. Her bedroom adorning the posters all over her wall. She also had a collection of porcelain dolls and a few pets, a guinea pig, rabbit, and cat. Her mother Jody said she loved animals and wanted to be a veterinarian one day. She had a distinct giggle and a smile that lit up her whole face. And she had a love of candy. One person even reported that she couldn't find a $5 bill in her pocket because it was filled with so many candy wrappers. When you hear these facts about Heather, you can picture a happy, cheerful 10-year-old little girl talking to her friends about her favorite bands and the pets and family that she loved. It makes what happened to her all the more devastating. It's Sunday, October 1st, 2000. A crisp fall day in Cloverdale, a suburb of Surrey, about 35 to 40 minutes southeast of Vancouver, not far from the U.S. border. Heather and Christopher are at their dad's townhouse complex at Unit 26, 17722 60th Avenue. Around 4 p.m., Heather and Chris ask Pat if they can stay outside a little bit longer and play before heading back to their mom's. And I don't know about you, but I remember being that age, and being inside felt like a prison. If you had a bike and a friend nearby, you were out until your parents called you in for dinner or bedtime. Now, this was before tablets were raising kids. Just saying. So Pat says yes, they can play for another 20 minutes, then he needed to drive them home to their mom's. Around 4:30 p.m., Chris comes back inside, alone. Pat's like, "Okay, where's your sister?" And Chris says he can't find her. So Pat immediately starts searching, calling Heather's name, knocking on doors, and checking with neighbors. One neighbor says they saw Heather riding a friend's bike in the complex. She was wearing jeans, purple sandals, and a white t-shirt with pink, green, and blue stripes. Pat keeps looking, and there about 100 meters from his front door is the red Rayleigh bike lying on its side, and the wheel is still spinning. And to me, that is chilling, because that suggests she was taken moments before they found the bike. The window of time is tiny, the kind of tiny that makes your stomach drop. Pat calls police right away, and I can't imagine the panic he must have been feeling. As a parent myself, my soul would leave my body, fully. No question. According to retired Corporal Pete Cross' article, Heather, at 10:15 p.m., he and Constable Chris Dottar from the Serious Crimes Unit were dispatched to the Thomas residence, meaning 5 hours had gone by since Heather was last seen. And yes, RCMP had reportedly been there earlier, but Major Crimes got brought in to assist. They dust the bike for fingerprints, but don't find any suspicious prints. Pat is cooperative, and he allows the detectives to research the house and his vehicle. But they note that Pat's demeanor is quote-unquote unusual. They felt he didn't show emotion the way they had expected. And here's the thing. Police often look at the people closest first. That's standard. But also, people respond to shock differently. Some people cry, some people go numb, some people get weirdly calm because their brain is trying not to explode. Pat agrees to go to the station and give a statement, and early on, police suspect he may be involved. But once they start mapping the timeline and witness accounts, they quickly rule him out. And once they're satisfied that he had nothing to do with it, the focus shifts to the most unsettling conclusion of all. This was likely a stranger abduction, which is terrifying and also incredibly difficult, because directly across from the complex that Pat lived at is the Cloverdale Fairgrounds, and every Sunday there's a massive flea market with hundreds of people. Plus, right beside that is a racetrack and casino. So you have up to thousands of people passing through that area and no way of knowing who was there during that exact window of time. So that's not a suspect list. That's a nightmare for police. Over the next 2 weeks, more than 1,000 volunteers join police, firefighters, and search and rescue teams. They do ground and air searches across Cloverdale, the Nickel River, nearby ditches, fields, and wooded areas. Helicopters scan secluded areas and divers search the waterways. Corporal Pete Cross would say that it was one of the largest investigations conducted by RCMP in Canada, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. The case even makes international headlines. America's Most Wanted airs a segment, and tips start coming in from across Canada and the US. Heather's photo goes up everywhere, the kind of picture you can't escape. And you don't want to, because you're praying someone recognizes her. But also every time you see it, your chest tightens a little. Now, we need to go 42 kilometers away to Golden Ears Provincial Park, about 11 kilometers north of Maple Ridge, BC. Golden Ears is huge. Forested, hemlock trees, red cedar, and Douglas firs. There are campgrounds, hiking trails, and Alouette Lake is in the middle of it. In the summertime, it's super busy with people. There's campers, hikers, and boaters. It's a place that I have camped many times when my children were little, and a place that I go often in the summertime just to swim at the beach or canoe across the lake. It is beautiful there. There's mountains surrounding it. It's serene. It's a gorgeous place. But in the fall, it gets quieter and more remote. There's one road in and out. That's it. On October 22, 2000, a hiker is walking along the rocky beach of Alouette Lake. About 20 meters from shore, they see something in the water, and at first it's just a pale shape. But the longer they look, the more it becomes clear. It's a small body, and they call 911. When RCMP arrive on scene, they discover the body floating face down, semi-submerged, about 500 meters north of the boat launch. She's naked from the waist down, and a shirt covers her upper body, similar to what Heather was last seen wearing. An interesting fact is that Alouette Lake levels are manually controlled. They lower the lake in the winter to prepare for the spring runoff. Who knew? Clearly I didn't, nor did the killer. So as the water level dropped, things resurface, especially those closer to shore. Police also now have the difficulty of retrieving evidence as water destroys so much. It complicates everything, including cause of death, timelines, and any evidence of sexual assault, to name a few. Due to the unpleasant way water decays human flesh, they will need dental records to confirm identity. By now, the media is swarming the area, and even a media helicopter gets so low to the water that the blades actually blow the body from where it was originally found. And then, the province, which is a Vancouver newspaper, takes a photo of the half-nude body and puts it on the front page. I'm sorry, what? That is someone's child? That is a human being, and that would be a family's worst nightmare, and you're making it a headline image. It was deeply insensitive and completely wrong. And it is said that they lost 90,000 subscribers due to that one picture that they put up, which I completely agree with. Investigators had already contacted Heather's parents beforehand, so they wouldn't find out through the media. So by the time that the photo was printed, they already knew it was likely Heather. But it doesn't make it any better with what they did. Not far from where the body is found, officers locate a black and gray Winwell sports bag, one that would be used for hockey or football equipment submerged in the water. Inside, they find large rocks, likely used as weight. They also find undergarments and jeans matching what Heather was last seen wearing, plus a burgundy-colored towel. And one detail stands out immediately to police. The zipper on the bag is broken. Police wonder if her body had originally been in the bag and floated free when the zipper failed. But proving that is hard because, again, water. During the shoreline search, they also find a small cloth bracelet. When Heather's mom, Jody, sees it, she recognized it immediately. She had helped Heather make it. So that was just one more quiet confirmation of what they had already feared. Dental confirmation takes time because lab techs were on strike. But eventually it is confirmed the body is Heather. And that moment, I can't even imagine. That stomach drop, that collapse of hope. No parent should ever have to live through that. An autopsy showed that Heather had been asphyxiated either by strangulation or smothering, and there was no evidence of sexual trauma. But like I said, it was hard to tell because of the water damage. Now, Police narrow their thinking. Whoever did this had connections to two places, Cloverdale and Maple Ridge, and they used a hockey bag, suggesting maybe they played sports. The focus now becomes finding the murderer. Now here's where things get a little interesting. After Heather is found, a Maple Ridge dispatcher is watching the news, like we all were at that time, and something about it pulled at her memory. She remembered a call from earlier in October, a report about a suspicious vehicle in Golden Ears Park. At first, it's vague, but it nags at her enough that she calls it in. Two officers follow up and track down the 4 park employees who reported the vehicle as suspicious. And once they start talking, a clearer picture forms. On October 2nd, around 6:50 a.m., those 4 Golden Ears employees are carpooling into the park. They notice a big, quote-unquote, boat-style vehicle creeping along in front of them, weaving from side to side along the road. The driver slouched down in a driver's seat looking straight ahead and wearing a hoodie. It's hard for them to pass, so they're stuck behind it for about 1 kilometer. They get to their office, they grab their work vehicles, and then they head back out to do their jobs. A short time later, one employee, Michael Zavaglia, is driving toward the entrance and sees the same car pulled over with its hood up like it's been broken down, but there was no driver. He radios it in and they immediately call the RCMP. Later that morning, around 10:30 a.m. or 11, another employee, Stuart Burgess or Paul, depending on which source you're reading, sees the car again, this time parked at the top of the boat ramp. And again, no driver. Stuart's curiosity gets the best of him, so he circles back one more time, and this time, he sees the car speeding past him at about 80 kilometers an hour in an area that's around 50 kilometers an hour, I believe. He describes it as a blue-gray colored vehicle and very large in size. But by the time the RCMP arrive, it's GOA, gone on arrival. And honestly, thank God those employees trusted their gut. They could have shrugged it off, but they didn't. And that decision ends up cracking this case open. Michael Zavaglia tells the officers he might have written the license plate down somewhere, maybe in a logbook. So they go looking, and they find it. Scribbled along the edge of a page dated October 2nd, the day after Heather went missing, and the plate number is DRE 666. Now, that is not a license plate you forget. That's basically a perfect villain's plate for any movie, in my opinion. They run the plate, and it comes back to a 1971 Chevrolet Impala, registered to Shane Ertmoyd, born December 22nd, 1977, 23 years old at the time. The registration is tied to an address in Vernon, BC, which is in the Okanagan, about a 4.5-hour drive from Maple Ridge. But then the first real crack in the case appears. Investigators learned that on October 2nd, the same day the suspicious vehicle is repeatedly seen in Golden Ears Park, Ertmoyd renewed his driver's license and provided a new address. Now listen to this. Unit 8, 17700, 60th Avenue, Cloverdale. And if that sounds familiar to you, because it is, it's the same complex where Pat Thomas lived. So now, you've got a young man living in the townhouse complex where Heather was last seen, and the very next day, his vehicle is spotted in Golden Ears Park, the same park where Heather's body is later found in Alouette Lake. You can practically feel investigators sitting up like, oh, okay, hello. But good investigators don't just lock onto a suspect because it fits. And that's a good thing. Tunnel vision can ruin cases. So even though this is the biggest break they've had so far, police still don't have solid evidence tying Ertmoyd directly to Heather, which means now they need to connect the dots. Behind the scenes, about 40 investigators were pulled together and divided into 7 separate teams. Each team had one job, one focus, and one leader who was basically told, do whatever you need to do legally to get results. Police believed Heather was most likely killed inside Shane Ertmoyd's home. and then transported in his vehicle to the Maple Ridge area. That meant two things had to happen, and they had to happen without Shane knowing. His home needed to be searched, and his car needed to be forensically searched. So yeah, this wasn't your typical knock and talk investigation. This was covert. Police needed legal permission to essentially break into Shane's residence and quote-unquote steal his car, or at least make him believe someone else had. Those police are very, very crafty. I will give them that. While the paperwork moved forward, surveillance quietly built a picture of Shane's daily life. And honestly, he seemed boring. He was a loner. He worked in Maple Ridge removing asbestos from old buildings. He often hit up the local 7-Eleven in the evenings for an oversized Slurpee. Not exactly a high-energy target, which, in surveillance terms, is actually ideal. As all of this unfolded, police also did a full review of the case file, now that they had a name. And that's when things got, uncomfortable. They realized Shane had already crossed paths with police. He'd been briefly spoken to during the neighborhood canvass and told officers he, quote, didn't know anything, that he'd been out, and that he had gone to the movies, end quote. Another officer stationed at the complex entrance in those early days had been meticulously writing down license plates. She remembered Shane leaving the complex around 5:20 a.m. on October 2nd. His car looked clean, there was nothing in the back seat, and he said he was heading to work. When the covert entry into Shane's residence finally happened, forensic investigators slipped inside in the middle of the day, coveralls, ball caps, and toolboxes in hand, dressed to look like construction crew. Police photographed everything and they dusted for prints. They didn't find any obvious signs of a struggle or any blood or hair inside the house. But something did stand out. Inside a desk drawer in a shoebox, investigators found something else. 2 receipts separated from the rest, almost intentionally. One was for gas at the Happy Face station, and the other for the Colossus movie theater in Langley, BC. Both were dated for October 1st, 2000. The gas receipt was time-stamped at 4:24 p.m., and the movie ticket time-stamped at 5:08 p.m. for the 7 o'clock showing of The Exorcist. It looked less like random clutter to the police, though, and more like an alibi on standby. So they photographed the receipts and they left them in place so that Shane did not know that they were there. The next day, police made their move on Shane's car. The car was not, quote, blue-gray, end quote, as the park employee Stuart had thought. Maybe he was colorblind, I don't know. But it was metallic green in color, with gold-covered spoke wheel covers and white vinyl upholstery, custom-made and hard not to notice. Almost immediately, though, there was a bit of a hiccup. Media picked up on the car being taken and started following the tow truck. Geesh, those media peeps are on it. So the driver, who happened to be related to one of the officers, drove in circles around Cloverdale while police coordinated a traffic stop on the media vehicle to break surveillance. Phew, crisis was averted. Shane's 1971 green Chevrolet Impala license plate DRE666 was finally secured. When investigators opened the trunk, it was packed, full to the brim with a hydraulic lift kit. Thousands of dollars of equipment and no space for a body to be transported in. Then someone suggested opening the hood of the car. Underneath was an area about 3 feet long that dust had been removed from, like something had been placed there. A forensic officer thought it would be a great idea to see if he could fit in the spot with the hood closed, and lo and behold, he did. The thought of that to me, though, makes me sweat. I hate enclosed spaces, and if you closed a hood over me, I would panic. But he did it, and police now believed that Heather was transferred from Shane's home under the hood in a hockey bag, 43 kilometers to Golden Ears Park. And to me, that is horrifying. Meanwhile, the Vernon team uncovered something that honestly makes me sick. Shane had already been reported for a sexual incident involving a child. His girlfriend at the time had been babysitting, so Shane went to keep her company. When she was asleep, he went into the child's room, pulled her down from her bunk bed, and was found spooning her while she slept. It's disgusting. Police knew, and it was documented, and somehow, unbelievably, no charges were ever laid. He was allowed to walk away, and that failure is impossible to ignore when you look at what happens next. While all of this is happening, the case kept quietly tightening around Shane. Investigators were reviewing footage from 22 cameras inside the Colossus movie theater. Now, did you guys know that you were being watched so closely at a movie theater? Yikes, I certainly did not know that. But in this case, it was helpful because they could clearly see Shane buying the movie tickets, but what they couldn't see was Shane ever going in to actually watch the movie. So his alibi was wobbly. And then there was the towel. The towel found inside the hockey bag matched the type and color of towels that they found inside Shane's apartment, the kind sold at the Bay. And for those of you who don't know, the Bay is a large Canadian department store. At least it was until recently. So those things are not proof on its own, but another quiet, uncomfortable overlap that they couldn't ignore. And then on Friday, Shane showed up at the police counter with his aunt to report his car stolen, which I think is hilarious. He was visibly frustrated, and he told staff that a reporter had tipped him off saying that it was a BCAA vehicle that towed his car away. But unbeknownst to him, the police still had it in their custody. Then came Sunday. Surveillance watched as Shane was approached by a Vancouver television crew while he appeared to be moving boxes out of the townhouse. That night, at 6 o'clock, investigators watched the interview air. According to Corporal P. Cross, Shane tells reporters that he's moving out, talking about how he feels unsafe, and then he casually mentions being worried about his young relatives, cousins, coming to visit. And I need to stop there for a second, because hearing that now is really uncomfortable. Knowing what we know, you can't help but hope no child in his family or his internal life was ever harmed by him. The reporter asks him if he's talked to the police yet, and Shane says no. Then he kind of laughs and adds that he doesn't want them showing up. And then he goes right back to his story of he says he wasn't home, he says he was at the movies. There was a guy there helping him move who actually turned out to be his brother, who jumps in and says he was there earlier that day that Heather disappeared as well, but he had left around 5 or 5:30. And the two guys actually are on camera correcting each other in front of the world, which was really interesting. Then Shane lowers his voice and adds one more thing, that he's got a gas receipt to prove that he wasn't there. He appears smug, and in that single interview, Shane did two things at once. He publicly locked himself into an alibi, and he showed investigators just how comfortable he was with lying. Finally, on Friday, November 3rd, 2000, police had enough evidence to arrest Shane Ertmoyd and charge him with first-degree murder. The following day at 10:30 a.m., Shane is interviewed by Corporal Bishop, who is part of a specialized interview team. He was very good at his job because within 3 hours, Shane confessed to the murder of Heather Thomas and disposing of her body. All of it was recorded on videotape. Here's the timeline of what Shane admitted to. And honestly, this is where I feel sick. So just please take care as we go through this. Shane says that he lured Heather into his apartment by telling her he had books with pictures of birds. And that detail, that's not random. That tells you he'd likely spoken to her before and knew of her love for animals. He was grooming her, which is disgusting and horrifying. Once inside, he coaxed her down onto the floor of the townhouse, and he admitted to spooning her while removing her pants and her underwear. I don't even know how to say that without getting angry, because this is a sick, grown man preying on a child. Heather started to struggle and scream, and to keep her quiet, he put his hand over her mouth. In Shane's own words, according to court documents, he said, quote, "I strangled her with my hands. Before I knew it, she was dead. I didn't mean to hurt her at all." End quote. What? You were trying to sexually assault a child and then you murdered her. I am pretty sure, actually, I am positive that you meant to hurt her, and that is so horrifying to me. After killing her, Shane emptied his hockey bag and put Heather inside of it along with her clothes. He carried the bag through a fence near his townhouse and over to his car. And then he put her in the back seat and drove out of the complex and headed east towards Golden Ears Park. As he was heading out, he noticed police doing radar enforcement. So instead of continuing, he casually rerouted, taking side roads until he reached 200th Street in Langley. That's where Shane stopped for gas at the Happy Face station at 4:24 p.m., which the receipt found in his drawer had proved. This also showed that Shane had left the complex with Heather in the bag in the back seat before Pat even knew Heather was missing. And somewhere between filling the tank and getting back in his car, he decided to build himself an alibi by buying that movie ticket, not to watch the movie, but just to say that he did. Which tells you everything you need to know about how calculated he really is. Shane then says he chose Maple Ridge because it was far enough away, and because he'd already had asked a coworker about Golden Ears Park. Police actually did confirm that with the coworker later. Once inside the park, he drove a few miles in and pulled over, placing the bag containing Heather into dense brush just off the roadway, and then he went home. But his mind must have been going and going and going, and he started to panic that she would be found. So the next morning at 5:30 a.m., he left again to go to the park. This time was when he was seen by that police officer that I mentioned earlier, seeing him exit the complex without anything in the back seat. But that was because he'd already taken Heather to the park the previous night. Shane was then seen by those 4 park workers driving slowly that morning. And once again, that's because Shane was trying to look for the spot that he had dumped Heather's body, and he couldn't find it. When he did eventually find it, he pulled over and popped his hood to look like the car had broken down. Running out of time, he marked the spot with a skid mark on the road and sped off to work, which started at 8 a.m. By 10 a.m. that day, he claimed he had a headache, and he told his boss he needed to take the rest of the day off work. But instead of going home, he buys an inflatable raft and a single paddle, confirmed later by a receipt. He went back to the park and retrieved Heather in the bag, paddled out far enough to be out of sight on Alouette Lake, and then he put Heather and the bag in the water, weighing it down with rocks. And here's the part that honestly just makes me shake my head. Because in his statement, Shane denied putting the rocks in the bag. Of all the things to deny, it just doesn't make any sense to me. After that, he drove out of the park, dumped the raft in a dumpster, and then went on with his life. Shane's trial began in May 2002 at the British Columbia Supreme Court. It didn't take long for the jury to convict Shane of first-degree murder. And in August 2002, he was sentenced to 25 years without full parole. As reported in CTV News, Shane applied for escorted day parole in 2021 after serving 19 years in prison. Jody Thomas's longtime lawyer, Rebecca Darnell, stated, quote, "The parole board decided to grant Ertmoyd's request for escorted temporary absence to help him rehabilitate and reintegrate," end quote. She also stated that Ertmoyd planned to work with non-profit organizations in the Victoria area, and she was concerned that he may use the position to look for new victims. Absolutely. This is ludicrous to me that they would let a convicted sexual predator and murderer out on escorted day parole. I can't believe they would even do that. In January 2025, Shane again applied to the parole board, but this time to get unescorted day parole. But after a 2-hour hearing and listening to Heather's mom, Jody, begging the parole board to not let this monster out, he was denied. Shane is currently serving out his sentence at William Head Institution, which is a minimum security prison, by the way, on Vancouver Island. He is eligible for parole in 2027 after serving his 25-year sentence. I hope that he never has the opportunity to hurt another child again. At the end of all this, my heart goes out to Heather's parents, Pat and Jody, and her brother Chris, who have spent the last 25 years living in a world without Heather. Today, Heather would have been 35 years old. Maybe she would have found love, had kids of her own, and become a veterinarian that she had dreamed of as a child. But her life was senselessly and tragically taken from her by a monster. And this story was not about him. It is about Heather. Remembering her and keeping her name alive is the least that we can do. So thank you for joining me on this journey. Thank you for listening to Valley of Secrets. If you'd like to follow me on social media, you can follow me at Valley of Secrets Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. I'll be back in 2 weeks with another new case for you. And until then, stay safe, stay aware, and stay curious.